Hello and welcome to Blaze Mahmood podcast, and this show is for visionary and entrepreneur learners who are thirsty for actionable steps and advice to make the next big thing. On the show, we'll be discussing everything related to business and entrepreneurship to help you do what you want to do and get you where you want to be in the shortest possible time. I'm Mahmood, the host of the show. I'm a curious person just like you, and we'll be learning along with you from the great individual who made it and made it big. Now, I'll be sharing everything I already know and the new things I'll be learning with you all. So, without wasting any more time, let's get into today's episode. Welcome to the show, and our today's guest is David Anthony Child. He is the co-author of Monster, Your Billion-Dollar Ideology. He has facilitated team alignment exercises for the executive leadership of billion-dollar companies and some of Western Canada's leading brands and teams to strategically adapt, play to their strengths, and better capitalize on who they really are, especially in times of crisis or change. And we welcome him to the show. And so, to give a spoiler to what our conversation is all about, it's about understanding if we are in the right business or not. So I welcome him to the show. And so my first question to you is, how do you define an entrepreneur?
To me, if you look at the opposition or the opposite side of being an entrepreneur, it's having a job. Or having your career path being a job, which there's nothing wrong with that. And I wouldn't equate being an entrepreneur as being better than having a job. There's a lot of career paths that pay extremely well. And the benefit of a career path is every 2 weeks you get paid no matter what. So when you look at becoming an entrepreneur, you might go a year or two with zero income. And hopefully you can get to profitability and, revenue very, very fast. And some businesses are fortunate to do that. But if you look at one of the real core differences is the risk you take and the ability to take that risk. So if you don't have a family and you're young, becoming an entrepreneur is relatively easy because your cost is low, your risk isn't very high. But as people get older and they have a mortgage and a car and all this business and a couple of kids, it's very hard to take those risks for an extended duration of time. So one of the defining characteristics to me is risk and your ability to take the risk. So you might be consciously available to take a risk, but do you have the actual lifestyle and ability to take that risk? Once you've gone through that hurdle, you get into now everything is on your shoulders. You have to produce something of value that the world will take in and of itself or attach onto something, but really you have to create all of the value. When you work inside somebody else's business, you're typically doing one or two, maybe three, but you're doing very specific things within that value that is presented to the company. As soon as you become an entrepreneur, everything is on your shoulders. And you have to be willing to take that weight. You have to be willing to stand up and do that. And you have to be willing and able to see what your clients, prospects, and what the world needs from many, many angles. Again, when you work inside an organization, you just have one sliver of that, whether it's financial or marketing or product creation, prototyping, whatever it is, you're just in one category. So the entrepreneurial journey is one of risk. It's one that you have to have great foresight, and it's one that you really have to be prepared for. I know it's much deeper than that, but that's probably a reasonable starting point from my experience.
Okay, so when did you start it as an entrepreneur? So what your situation was? Was it a high risk and high gain thing, or what was the situation?
I worked in an office for 3 years, and I was their marketing person. It was a great company, and I enjoyed my time there. And they paid me okay. It was what they could afford. But the thing was, I realized the nature of work that I was doing, the marketing and branding that I had taught myself that I was doing inside there. I ended up being their marketing director. I realized that I had more time, and it wasn't that I wasn't spending a lot of time it was just that I realized if I used my time in a different way than I was at their office, that I could actually produce things for multiple companies at the same time. And when I was selling it per item rather than selling myself per year, it was very obvious that I would make more money, right? So when I did a trade show booth for the company that I worked for, I got paid the same salary every 2 weeks. And if they put a push on me and I did 3 of them or whatever it was, I got paid the same amount. When I started my business, if I did 3 in 2 weeks, I got paid for 3 of them at market rate, which was substantially different. So when I started my company, I came to the end of the road where I was living in Victoria, BC. And I looked around and I realized the city wasn't big enough for the ambition that I had. I was in the wrong place. So I looked around and I had 3 ideas. It was either China, because it was exploding. And I thought, this could be great. This was in 2004. I'd lived in Malaysia before. So I loosely thought about going back there. And I thought about moving around in Canada. And I'd never considered Vancouver, but I came over here for a weekend and it just kind of clicked. This city's big enough and it has the ecosystem and the people that I need. So a short time after I quit my job, I moved to Vancouver and I just started living Blueprint and went for it. And I replaced my salary in the first year completely. My second year, I quadrupled my salary. In the third year, I tripled that. So it was a pretty good steep rise when I started the company, because again, I had a lot of skills. It was just when I was selling all of my skills at once to one person being an employee, I wasn't getting market rate really for anything other than my value in that chair, which is another defining characteristics of the difference between entrepreneurialism and having a job. When I sold myself in my job, I was selling myself at market rate for the chair. When I sold myself as an entrepreneur, I was selling myself market rate for every individual item I could possibly sell to people who needed it. And the change is significant if you can do that and pull that off.
Okay. So you actually mentioned a really interesting point that you sold every single element separately. But even if you think branding as a whole or branding strategy that you are doing, that has a lot of parts. Like it's a company needs it as a whole, but that it does not mean that a company needs the whole part of it sometimes.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
So how did you make parts of that? So you had all the things. You're turning from an employee to a business person. So how did you select that this part I'm gonna sell in this way? So how did you decided that?
Okay, so it's funny. I own an agency and I do brands for very big companies now, and I have a team. But when I started, I didn't actually go to school for marketing or branding. I went to school for digital animation, design, and things like that. I didn't go to school for marketing either. I learned it all on the job. And when I started living Blueprint, when I moved to Vancouver, I wanted to be able to go networking and go out and meet people. I had to focus on something that I'd done multiple times, not something I had done once. So in the company that I worked in, I completely overhauled their brand, sure, but that was one. I did that once. So it was hard for me to have a conversation and meet people and say, hi, I've done one brand. Can I work for you? Right? It didn't make any sense. I didn't feel the value. For me, the value proposition was very high because I'd only done it once. But what I had done multiple times is I'd gone to all of their trade shows for 3 years. I built all of the trade show materials, all of the trade show booths, and all of that. So when I started living Blueprint, I'd only built the one website for them. So I didn't start as a web or branding agency. I started out as a trade show production company, because I knew that, I'd stood on the floor in Chicago and Toronto and in Seattle and Vancouver and Victoria. Like, I'd stood in lots of trade shows and I knew them inside and out. I was the guy standing there talking to everybody. I built all of the materials. So that was something that I could say that I was relatively an expert at. So when I started my company, when I met people, I said I was a trade show booth specialist and I could help you. I could consult with you. I could build anything you wanted. And if they wanted examples, I could give multiple examples. If they asked what it's like being on the floor, I could tell them, well, I was on the floor for a week in this one in Chicago, and I could talk through it. It was easy. And the funny thing was, in my first year, I didn't sell that much trade show stuff. It sold almost everything else. I sold print material. I sold a little bit of graphic design, just anything that I could get my hands on that a little company or a medium company would need. Anything to get in the door. Once I was in the door after my first sale and I'm on the books, that's key. Get in the door, get on the books. Once you're on the books, it's easy for them to pay you. When you're not on the books, they're like, who is this person? How do we pay them? What are their terms? So the trick with a good sized company is get on the books. Now you're known. Now it's just an invoice. Everybody's used to you. They get an okay from their boss that they're allowed to get things from you in a certain range. So once I was in the door at multiple companies, then it was just, okay, I would just show them more things that I need. Oh, I could help you here. Oh, look, did you see what we did here for these people? Oh, hey, we need that. And that just started to grow. But the key was get in the door, sell anything you could to get in the door of a good company, get on the books, and then just systematically get bigger and bigger things from them over time.
Okay, so you said a really important point here. So I read a book. I finished a book yesterday or like a few days ago. It's called How to Sell to Big Companies, like selling to big companies. And it talks about this concept. So sell to them one small thing, and then you can continue explore other areas.
Yeah. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One, big companies are going to be protective, and they should be. They're not going to open their door for a risk. So for instance, Mahmoud, if you go to a big company and they don't know you, it doesn't matter how good you are, because your personalities might clash. You might be the best branding person on the planet, but you might hate their team or their team might hate yours, or you all love each other, but you just can't work together. And big companies are fully aware of this, and they will protect themselves from this. And the rookie mistake in a big company is a junior person in charge of something with a budget goes out and hires someone they've never worked with before and gives them $100,000 or $200,000 budget, and the project doesn't work. Now, what is their boss going to do? Their boss is going to say, you hired someone you didn't know. What the hell did you expect? So that's a dramatic example, but think about that. Let's say you work for the biggest company in the world and you're given a budget and they say, okay, we need a sub brand for this item. Here's all the money you could possibly need. Go out and hire someone. You hire someone, you don't get along. Your boss is going to come back and say, what were you thinking? And then when you ask for a raise, they're going to say no, because you've demonstrated poor judgment. So the way the world works is they would come to you and say, look, I would love to work with you, but we're going with this tier one agency that we've used 100 times because we know what happens. We know what we get. We know where they get sticky. We know everything about them. But I'm going to give you the print material. They'll do the brand, but you're going to handle the print material. It's a small job. Let's see how you do. So you go in and you learn to work with them. You take one for the team. You're humble. You be nice. You work professionally. You do clean work. And then they can make a decision next time and they'll give you another project, be it big or small. And they'll pull you along for a while until the right project comes along that they feel you and them are capable of pulling off. Because remember, especially in big companies, but even in small companies, everybody is looking at you as a career move. Everybody is. Think about that. Because if I hire you and you do a terrible job, what happens when I ask for a raise? What happens when me and my peer who are equal are looking for a promotion, but only one promotion's available and I screwed up a big job because I hired the wrong person? How does that look on me? So remember, everybody who hires you is fully aware that the person above them is grading you not only on your performance, but your decision making. And you have to be aware of that when you go in. So there's one agency, I won't name them, they're a global agency, and their policy is to get you, the person who hired them, awards. That's their policy. So they hire you, or you said, so I'm the client and I hire this agency. What they do is when the job is done, they take a portion of the budget that I paid them, they take my money and they submit my work for global awards. So for brand design, for marketing execution, for homepage design, whatever, there's millions of awards. It's crazy. And then what they do is when they get the awards, they credit them to you. So now you can go back, or I can go back to my boss and say, look, you know that project I did with so-and-so, that new brand I launched for the company I work in? Well, we got an international brand award for typography. We're the best typographers on the planet. That award is in my name. So I take that to my boss, and my boss goes, good for you. Because the award isn't only in my name, it's in my name and the company's name. So now when I go and say, okay, well, I'm going to hire someone again to do something else, am I going to hire the people who didn't get me awards, or am I going to hire the people who got me awards? Because the awards boost my career and make me look good to my boss. That's one of their competitive advantages, because other than that, marketing is marketing, branding is branding, to completely trivialize it. So their competitive advantage, and I know this because one of my colleagues, she worked for a major company, and she hired this agency, and she got 2 or 3 awards from it that are on her record attached to the company she worked for.
Okay.
So these are all the things that you have to think about when you're going into big companies. Are you going to get them a promotion or a demotion? Are you going to get them a raise, or are you going to get them stuck in their career? This is beyond the project that they hired you for. This is the decision making when they're sitting in their seat looking at you saying, why you? You're the same price as the other company, but why you? Is it going to work?
True. So even like I'd add one thing here, and then I have one other question. So even if you have lower price, then even then that's also an issue. Like if you're battling with the same company with same price.
Forget about lower pricing.
Yeah,
Forget about lower pricing. No, but that's not my point. That's not my point.
Yeah, I know.
Lower pricing isn't the battle.
True.
Unless you're working with a company with no money, or they're unscrupulous, or they just don't understand business. I don't want to work with any of those companies. But here's the thing. You go into a store, and there's the car you want. Let's just say it's a Ferrari, right? So there's a Ferrari. You know, because you did all of your research, that Ferrari is $123,000. You know that. You've done all the consumer reports. You checked it out. You know, used, they go for around $98,000. These are facts. You know this. You did comparative analysis and you saw it. You know it's a fact. Now, you go around the corner. That exact car, brand new, is $50,000. Do you trust it?
No.
And the salesman says, no, listen, this is exactly the same around the corner, but mine is well below half the price, and mine is exactly the same. There's nothing wrong with it. I promise you, it's perfect, and it's 50 grand. You gonna feel comfortable?
No, absolutely not.
So when we talk about price, let's understand something here. There is market rate for things for lots of reasons. One, certain things cost a certain amount of human time. They cost a lot of different ways to do it. And if you come in dramatically below what it's worth, you won't get the job unless it's a bad company or a company with no experience. And here's the thing. So you get a job with a company with no experience, and they don't know how to run you. They don't know how to run a job. They don't know what to expect. From my experience in those situations, you got paid half. And at the end of the job, they're left thinking you didn't do enough for them. That happens almost every single time because they don't know what they're getting. So again, when it comes into price, you're like, well, if I'm a little bit higher or lower than somebody else, is that going to get me the job? And I would say when you're going for good companies and you're going for good business people, it's never the price. Because again, when they sit there and they go to their boss and say, look, I hired this company. They did exactly what we asked. It met and beat all of my expectations. I got 3 global awards for it. We met our objectives. And you know what? They were 30% higher than everybody else, but we got everything we wanted. What's the boss going to say? Good on you. Next time you hire them, see if you can get it a little bit cheaper. But you know what? Good. If you go in and say, man, I got these guys, you know, they were 20% lower than everybody else. Yeah, they did an okay job. It wasn't too bad. We didn't meet all our targets, but I saved us some money. Who made more money in the end? The first guy. because their brand and it hit more. They made more sales. That's how it works. Now, I can only use generic examples, and there's always the caveats of what if and what if and what if. But to over dramatize what happens, those are basic scenarios of, from my experience, what happens. And I'll just give you one quick thing. I went in for a job once, and it was the biggest branding job I had ever done. And it was probably 2 times bigger than anything we had done at once. We had done jobs just as big, spread out over 2 or 3 years, but this was one job in one go over 6 months where everything came in. So it was bigger and it was compact. And when I took my proposal in, put it on the table, and the guy opened it up and he flipped through and he saw the price and he just looked up at me and said, "That's really low." And then I looked at him and we locked eyes and I said, "There's 5 pages of appendixes." Because the thing was, what he was saying to me was, when he said it was too low, he was saying, if you screw this up, I'll lose my job. That's what he was saying. He was saying, if this doesn't work, my company will be hurt and I will hurt my career. That's what he was saying. And when I said there's 5 pages of appendixes, I said, I'm going to get you a raise. That was the dialogue. We got the job. It exceeded everything they hoped for, and they all got raises. To put it just in a nice, tight little package.
Okay. Interesting. So one other question that I had in my mind when I also said to you was, so how long does it take from having doing a small job for a company or a good company to going for a real job that we want to do for the company?
How long does it take from a first date to get married and have 3 kids?
Not fixed.
So it's not fixed at all. I mean, it's different all the time. And I had a relationship with the company for 13 years. And the reason the relationship ended was everybody that I knew there got replaced over time, including the president. And they just went in a different direction. If they were also there, I'd still be there. It was a 13-year-long career. And the thing was, we did everything for them in pieces over time. They were a staple of my revenue for 13 years that I could count on. Because of that, they got everything at a discount, comparatively speaking, to other clients, because I was never looking at them as, I better make my money now. I was always looking at them as they're a portion of my yearly revenue. So when something came in, I would price it differently than everybody else because I didn't want them to leave. I would always price fair. I never left myself out, but I was looking at lifetime of client. So when you get in with a bigger company, you have to, what you want to bank on is, I want to be here next year and I don't want to leave myself out, meaning you're not going to charge too much and you're not going to charge too little. You should always push every once in a while. If they anticipate it's $1, charge $1.10 to see what happens. If they accept it, say, okay, I've moved my bar a little bit. If you put it up to $2, they're going to come back and say, you know what, this isn't working out. You don't want that to happen. Now, if it's a one-off where a company, you're going in and you can tell they're a little bit of a shark, but they need something fast, you can tell they're going to be a pain in the butt, you know what? Charge them $3. Because if you don't get the job, what did you miss out on? You missed on a month, 2 months, 3 months of revenue. But if you can still float, forget it, take the risk, push, because if they're going to be a pain in the butt, get paid for it, right? So when it gets into the psychology of selling, there's a whole bunch of different ways to approach these things. And when I look at the long-term effect of having a multi-year client, I'm not looking at rebranding as one chunk. I'm looking at chipping away at their brand, chipping away at who they are over time, and eventually flipping everything over time at a discount. Now, here's the thing. When I say at a discount, I'm talking at a yearly discount doing multiple projects. But if you add all of that up and put it into the amount of time that's required to do a full brand, you're still making more money if you do it right and you're doing it over time. So again, every relationship is different. You know, how long does it take to go from dating to marriage to kids? It's different for everybody. But what you want to bank on is a lifetime relationship with mutual respect in both instances, with your client or your spouse. You want to say, okay, how can this be fair for everybody? How can it be enjoyable for everybody?
Okay.
Did I address your question in there?
Yes, you actually did. So you addressed my question at the very beginning, like the first line for the first line.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had a question that, like, a listener of mine had a question related to branding. Is there any framework, or like what are the best practices for building a personal brand?
So when I hear personal branding or like professional or corporate branding, in a lot of instances, they're actually exactly the same. So in a way, it's like, you know, I'm going to get dressed, but I'm going to get dressed to the park, or I'm going to get dressed for business. Well, here's the thing. You're going to cover the same parts of your body, relatively speaking. You're going to wear clothes that have a certain quality or whatever in both instances, but they're going to be different. So let's look at the commonalities. When you're doing a corporate brand and when you're doing a personal brand, first of all, you have to answer the simple questions of, why the hell am I doing this? What is the point? And you have to be able to answer that question. And the question should end with something like, I want to achieve this. I want to be perceived in a certain way because I want to achieve this. I want to be thought about in a certain way so I could achieve this. Now, that achievement might be making the world a better place because you've designed a cell phone case that has a panic button on it. So if girls or boys are in trouble, they can hit the panic button. You've made the world a better place, saved a couple of lives. Wonderful. That might go back to your childhood where somebody that you know got attacked. And you went, you know, if they had that button, they wouldn't have been attacked. Aha, now we're getting into your origin story. Think of it as Spider-Man or, you know, Batman. His parents got killed. What did he do after that? He spiraled out of control and tried to save everybody. So again, when you look at personal branding, what's your motivation? Why don't you just go get a job? Now, here's an interesting thing about personal branding. When you're getting a job, personal branding now through something like LinkedIn is actually viable. So let's just look at some basic rules. If you're looking at personal branding to get a job, so you set up a LinkedIn account. Now, you have options. You can write your biography yourself and you can say, I, me, when I did this, I did that, and I'm so great and I'm wonderful and you should hire me because I'm great. Remember, the person hiring you doesn't care. The person hiring you is saying, if I hire you, will I get a raise? So when they hear you, what they're not hearing is, what's in it for me? I'm going to pay you. You obviously don't care about me. So you screwed up. So when you write your bio for LinkedIn, now this is for corporations too. You're going to notice this flips on both. But when you write your bio, this is where I had impact. This is how I helped my former boss. This is where I helped the former company. This is how I added value. The I's are still in there, but you want to really push it onto how you added value, what you're interested in, how you think you can add more value, things like that. So there's that way of writing your bio. And I would absolutely advocate, if you are not an English major or whatever country you're from, whatever language it's in, hire a writer. It's not going to be expensive. Spend the $30, get a writer, get $50, whatever it is. Get a professional writer to get it done well. Next, your photo. You could do it on your phone with a crappy backdrop. Yes, you could. You absolutely could. You could get a friend of yours who takes good pictures to do it with a good backdrop and decent lighting. Again, do you want the job or not? Now, listen, if you've got a crappy photo, this is your thing going out to the world, and it's a crappy photo, and it's a funny photo, and it's a cute photo, and your friends love the photo, and it's got your dog in it. I'm going to hire you because of that, because what you're telling me is you don't take you seriously in business. Boom, right there. Now, you can pay a professional headshot photographer to come and do your shot. You can do that. But every single one of us has a friend who's good with a camera, if you don't have the money to pay. All of us now can get a Samsung or whatever phone, and they can take good photos. Think about it. Get it well lit. Get it done properly. Don't mess around. Now, Those two basic things right there in your profile, I promise you, are going to set you apart from a lot of people. Because most people think that the bio should be, I did this, I did that, I did this, I am so great. You know what? When I woke up in the morning, I looked at myself and damn, I look good. Will you hire me? That's what most people do. Don't do that. You want to separate yourself from the crowd? Don't do that and get a great headshot. Now, corporately, same thing. Same thing. So those are very basic rules of how to approach things. Take it seriously and always remember the person hiring you wants a raise because they hired you.
Okay, so it's all about hiring thinking about the person who is reading this, like for the bio, who is reading this, for the headshot, who is seeing this, what's in it for them.
How can you serve? Now, here's the thing. You may have great aspirations of taking over the world, and that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Great. You don't have to tell everybody that you're going after their job. What you have to do is say, I'm going to help you get a raise. I'm going to help you. And you have to do that through your professionalism. You have to make it so when your boss when that person who's hiring you, when they print off or whatever, they send your information to the person who actually says yes, if it's not them, you want that person to go, wow, you really picked a great person here. Not, holy cow, look, that guy's got such a cute dog on his shoulder. And look, he's so amazed with himself. Because that's what a lot of profiles are. You want to make sure that if it's an assistant who prints that off and gives it to her boss, you want to make sure that the boss looks at the assistant and goes, you made good judgment. This person looks amazing. So from a personal branding point of view, there's that. Now, here's the thing too, and this is important, and this is a hard one. If you are terrible at something, don't say on your resume that you're good at it. There's this idea that floated around for a long time, and I'm hoping it's dead. And the idea is fake it till you make it. Here's the problem. If I hire you and you're faking it, and I know, because what I do, if I hire someone, I would hire someone in two senses. One, to do something I cannot do, or to do something that I'm extremely capable, more capable than most, but I don't have time. So here's the problem. You faked it. You said I could do it. So I hire you. Scenario one, I don't know the job and you lied to me and said you could do it. So now the problem is we're burning along and going and I don't know you can't do it. And eventually it comes to a point where miraculously you actually pull it off, or more than likely you fail. And now I have to sit there and realize I hired the wrong person. That's a bad outcome. Now I'm not going to give you a reference. Now my boss is going to be mad at me, or I'm going to miss my market. Second, I hire somebody to do something that I am more than capable of doing. I am an expert at, and you lied to me and you were faking it until you could make it to get in the door. I'm going to expose you within about 3 days because I'm going to ask questions you can't answer. And when you start producing things, I'm going to say, wait a second, this is nowhere near where it needs to be. I'm going to go back and look at your resume. Then I'm going to ask you, hey, you said you could do this. I can't. No, you can't. Then I have to educate you that you don't know how to do something. That's a waste of time for both of us. Remember when I said, when I started my agency, what did I do multiple times? So I went in and I said I was a trade show booth specialist because I'd done it multiple times. Any question you had about trade shows, I could give that to you. Did I want to be a trade show company? No. Was I good at it? Yes. What I then, as I did more and more brands, there's a certain point in my history where I think I hit 10 brands that I said, I'm a branding agency, because now I could answer any question you have about brands. I didn't fake it until I made it. I earned my way up systematically. And that way I was never, ever caught in a conversation where I had to say something or lie to pretend I knew how to do something. I never had to do that. And I strongly encourage everybody to do the same thing because it works. There's too many people faking it till they make it. And the problem is, once they get hired, it's a downward spiral for everybody most times. It doesn't work.
Okay, that was a really good example and really great way to say this. So we understood that you were really good at branding and helped multiple brands. Now, when did you actually understood that that was not the right thing or the right business for you? When was it?
Okay, so yeah, it was quite a few years ago. So my company now, I think it started in 2004. So however many years that is, 17 years. And
Yes, 17.
what I had to earn my way up to be a branding agency. I had these lights in my eyes. I'm like, oh, I'm going to have, a 50-person agency. It's going to be a beautiful office downtown. But for me, as I met people who had companies like that and ran businesses like that, more and more, I didn't like it. I didn't like what it looked like. At the same time, what was happening was a lot of the ways I was approaching branding were more like consulting. So I remember once I was working with this airline, and here I am doing a branding project, but I've got the entire executive team locked away in an office for an entire day, and I'm doing consulting with them. That's not branding. So as I was doing more and more consulting, an actual brand strategy, I was pulling in that direction, but I was still telling everybody I was a branding agency. And what happened was I was actually selling consulting really cheap because nobody buys that type of consulting from branding agencies, but I was telling everybody I was a branding agency. So there's a cognitive dissonance. Two things were true at the same time, and they were canceling each other out. So that went on for a while until it came to a head where I realized I didn't like the business I was in because I didn't want to be a production agency. Because branding agencies can easily become production agencies because that's where you make your money. Right? You want to sell a big job, you want to get a big job, but you want to keep them on the books to do production. So now you've got a whole bunch of people there just doing graphic design and pumping stuff out for as much money as you can get out of the client. And it's just this big thing that I really didn't like. Some people thrive in that environment. I didn't. So when it came to a head that, we were way better at figuring companies out and then branding them, then it was like, well, why don't we just sell that? So now we're extremely good at figuring companies out. Exactly who are you? Exactly where do you fit in the world? How did you get there? What makes you valuable? That's what we're really good at. Now, here's the thing. A lot of companies who hire branding agencies think that's what you get, but it isn't. And that's important. A lot of companies will hire a branding agency thinking, finally, someone's going to tell us who we are. You know what branding agencies think? You know who you are. I'm not going to tell you who you are, and I'm going to reflect who you believe you are. I'm getting into a separate point here, but there's a difference in understanding from a branding agency to the client. A lot of clients think you're going to tell me who I am. A lot of branding agencies have to act accordingly to, you know who you are, and I'm going to help you explain that. So we actually got really good at the part of helping companies understand who they are. So that's primarily what we sell and what we teach now. And it was a difficult transition because I really convinced myself, and I really believed that I wanted a branding agency. And it took a while to let go of that. It took a while for me to say, that's actually not what I'm best at. It doesn't matter that I'm really good at it. It doesn't matter that I can build a brand that can compete with a bigger agency or the biggest. It doesn't matter. I didn't want to do it. Just because I was good at it doesn't mean I have to do it for the rest of my life.
Okay, so how much time did you take to pivot it from being a branding agency to a consultancy? So what was the time phase? Like, did it took years or like months?
For us, it took years, but again, that's the whole dating to marriage to kids thing. Some companies, if they hit crisis, so for instance, let's just talk about it structurally in situations that are theoretical, but that could happen. So one is you're belting along with your company and you hit a crisis. And you can no longer in any way sell what you've been doing for whatever reason, be it personal, professional, global, local, whatever it is, it stops. Nobody is buying that anymore. That's a crisis. So you've got a staff and you can't sell. So that's crisis. In that, you're going to pivot fast or you're going to die. And that's the end of it. And if you have, a slush fund of money in the bank to protect yourself for something like this, you've got a bit longer to live, but how long are you going to pay that out? So in crisis, you've got to pivot really, really fast. You have no choice. You pivot fast. You're going to have to shed some employees. And it might just be you and your best friend. You might have to shed your best friend. Otherwise, you're all going to fall flat on your face, right? So in crisis, it's imperative that you think fast, you be humble, and you make money however you can immediately. And then you start to specifically gain ground again in crisis. Now, most instances, from my experience, from our clients and from myself, it's not crisis. It's a sustained change over time. So for us, as I was doing branding, I was doing consulting right from day one. I just didn't know it because the way I approached it and how we asked questions was very similar to most agencies at the beginning. But it got deeper and deeper and deeper over time until it got to a point where it was actually more valuable than the branding. But that took a long time because I didn't know that it was something that I could sell. So there was a whole transition in there of rethinking how I understood business, rethinking of how I understood what we do, and then transitioning. So for us, it took years. But, you know, like there's a lot of, and here's a transition for you if you think about it. Why did Tesla beat Chrysler with electric vehicles? Think about that. Isn't it logical that Chrysler should have had a substantially better vehicle than Tesla? Faster? Isn't that logical? I mean, they're manufacturers of cars. And they have been. They were one of the first. After Ford, there was Ford, then there was Cadillac, who came out of Ford, and then there was Chrysler. This all started to happen. But then Tesla, a guy who started PayPal, comes along and cleans everybody's dinner plate and takes the market. Why did that happen? It happened because Chrysler and Ford and Chevy and all of these companies had their head down, focused on their market, supplying what their market wanted, and building cars in a certain way. Then a software company came along and built a better car. So the point when it gets to transitioning is sometimes it's relatively impossible to transition completely. Could Chrysler become better than Tesla or Chevy or anyone? It's doubtful. Now, this actually is a pattern in business where change typically comes from the outside because the people in the business who know the business, they get stuck at plateaus and they get stuck in ways of thinking that won't let them think like Tesla. And that's important. And to understand that, then you can start to understand your own constraints. Can I fully pivot? Is that possible? Now, I do believe that a lot of the conventional gas company cars, they have no choice now. They have to follow suit because the world is changing, the laws are changing, and gas vehicles are going to be eradicated from the planet in the next, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 10 years, who knows? They have no choice. But Tesla's way ahead. So the point on transitioning is it's something that you have to look at. It's extremely multifaceted and it's very difficult. And some companies can never transition. And I would absolutely advocate if you're going to transition, find leaders in that field and hire them. Bring them in. If you can't afford to hire them, if you're small, go out for coffee with them as often as they will let you. Start to think differently. If the owners of Chevy and Elon Musk were best friends, that would benefit Chevy if they would listen to him. And they would start adopting and starting to think differently. Because to me, transitioning is about thinking differently or understanding yourself better and letting yourself into the room and not blocking yourself out by believing that you're going to be a branding agency when you're actually a consultant.
Okay, so I have to fix a few of my internal wordings as well. So other
We all
than
do. Trust me, we all do.
Yeah. So one thing that you actually said was really cool was that Tesla is not a car company.
No.
It's never was, and
No.
it's never will be. That's the thing. It's a software company, and most of the people who are like learning about Tesla newly, like for most of the part of the world, Tesla is new. Like let's say in Bangladesh, people know Tesla, but as a car company, they don't think it's a software company. But if you think from Elon Musk's perspective, it's a software company. All the project
and think about it. Let's deconstruct it for a second. Why are they a software company and not a car company? I'll explain it to you. One, that's where his brain is at. That's what he understands. That's how he thinks. Now, I'm not going to get into his ulterior motives yet, but let's look at car companies. So what is a car? The car in its current form was designed well over 100 years ago and relatively has not changed in 120 years, 130 years? It really hasn't changed. 4 wheels, an engine, and a couple of seats. Have they gotten faster through Koenigsegg and Bugatti? Yeah, sure, they've gotten faster. But does a Koenigsegg do more than like a little Firefly car from Chevy or whoever? Not really. It's 4 wheels and an engine, and they go a certain distance. And if you went back 400 years ago and put both of them in front of people, they would both be amazed. Everybody would be amazed with both of them because they do the same thing. So what's different? So when Elon Musk, and I wasn't in the room with him, I wish I was, and I had some shares, but I wasn't in the room, but he would look at it and go, oh, technology company. Well, can we hire someone who can make the wheels work? Can we hire someone that can make an engine for us? Yes. Can we hire someone that can make seats? Yes. All of the car components were easily bought. But the part that they brought that was significant, that's changing the world, is the technology. And that's why they're a technology company. Now let's look at his ulterior motives. Why does he care about learning how to move humans around faster? Why did he build it? Why is he building the Boring Company going under the city he lives in to move humans around? Okay, so moving humans around. Why did he build PayPal? So most human beings could use money better. Interesting. So what's his ulterior motive? He wants to live on Mars. He wants to die on Mars, just not on impact. So now if you look at all of these things, how do they all work together in his ecosystem? Right? His car company is a ploy. One, to make money, to test technology. But what technology? AI, self-driving. Why the hell would he need AI to be smarter? Why would he need machine learning to be smarter? Well, he wants to live on Mars. He's going to need those things. He needs to test them. He needs to perfect them. He needs to make them the best in the world. How can you do that? Put them into an extraordinarily highly regulated industry and make them work. Think of the lengths you have to go to. So once he makes that work there and he's going to Mars, he's like, I've already built a component for that. In fact, by building it, I made $20 billion. Isn't that wonderful? Rather than, how do we make AI to go to Mars? When you look at the different approach of like a space agency, for instance, they put all the money in, they get all of their money from government, and they develop a spaceship to go to space. And they do that at a great deficit for a very long time. And then they go to space once and then they come back. What Elon Musk is doing is saying, I don't want to pay for that. I want to get paid for that. So let's build a car company. Let's build the Boring Company to move cars around. Again, highly regulated, very complicated, sharpen the wings of AI and machine learning, get better at everything so you can use that and license it back to yourself. It's smart, all-encompassing business.
Okay, you actually widened my eyes right now. Okay, why? I said why. So Elon Musk is doing everything, like creating everything that he needs in Mars, like all people will need in Mars. Now,
the way I present the facts, I believe that's true. I believe that's true.
Yeah. So now the thing is, you have to land the things there. So that's the only issue. Like landing on Mars is the most difficult thing as of right now.
Yep.
So if now after figuring out what we can take there, we have to figure out just how to place them there. That's the most simple word. Like you actually said,
think about that. Is it an algorithm that lands a rocket, or is it machine learning AI based on algorithms?
Machine learning AI.
And again, I have a friend who's a PhD in mathematics and AI, and he knows machine learning very well. He could answer this better than I could. But look, if you're landing a rocket, is it the algorithm that lands the rocket, or is it a combination of machine learning, AI, and the algorithm? Okay. I don't know the answer, to be clear with everybody here. This is not something I know, but logically, I believe it's a combination of the three. Now, if it's a combination of the three, how can you get better at AI, machine learning, and algorithms? Go into highly regulated spaces and make things that are illegal today and make them work and change the world. So you get better at all of predictive technology. You get better at all of these sensors and everything. So now when he goes to land a rocket on Mars, he's like, well, I kind of built the whole thing for that already. So let's just go test it in that environment. And by the way, by testing it, I kind of made $20 billion. And in fact, he didn't make 20 billion. I think he made 100 billion or whatever it is, which means now instead of approaching space like everybody else as a moneyless pit, he approached it as a massive opportunity to use related industries. So everything is focused on one point. And in the process, he just happened to build a great car. This is the new way of doing business. And I'll tell you something. And this is a Martha Stewart story, believe it or not. So I saw Martha Stewart speak at a conference years ago, maybe 10 years ago, maybe 12, I don't know. And she was weird on stage. Sorry, I might lose my connection. If we do, we'll call back. I'm getting error. I'm getting little messages saying my connection's unstable. But if we'll just keep going. So what she said was, when she started all of her businesses after she was 40, she started her book, she started her TV shows, she started products and all of these things. They were all separate. And that's how business was done. Everything was separate. She went to her publishing company and a bunch of the people she worked with and said, I want to put it all together. This is her story. These are her words. She said, I want to be on TV using a frying pan, and I want that frying pan. I want people to be able to go online and find the exact frying pan I use with my name on it and buy it. And I want to put it in my magazine, and I want everything to be connected. And all of the, as she put it, men in business said, that's not how business is done. No. She spent $100 million buying the rights back to her companies so she could do that one thing, connect everything. So instead of the TV thing makes money over here and then this thing makes money over there, she wanted it as one. It cost her $100 million to get everything back. So then she could simply put out a newspaper article talking about the TV show she was in, showing the frying pan she used, selling the cookbook that she used to make the recipe. That's all Elon Musk is doing. And I believe that is the wave of new business if you're smart enough to do that, but it's a different priority. Instead of saying, how do I make a branding agency? You go back to your childhood. Were my parents killed in a back alley like Batman? If so, how am I going to respond? Was my sister attacked as a child? Am I going to make a panic button on a phone? Whatever it was, those are dramatic. Maybe it wasn't so dramatic. Maybe you were just the kid that didn't have a lot of friends. Maybe you had too many friends, whatever. But once you understand your emotion, your emotive, why the hell are you in business? What do you want? Elon Musk wants to go to Mars. Once you understand that, you understand Tesla, the Boring Company, PayPal, you start to understand why. If you don't understand that, he looks crazy. And so will you, by the way.
Okay, by you, I mean like every single person, not just me.
Yeah, I'm being specific yet very general at the same time. Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, so usually what are the signs that that a person is in the wrong business? So we learn about finding the origin story at first so that we can actually relate to everything. But what about the signs that we don't know yet? So if you're right in the wrong business, we didn't connect it to our origin story yet. So what would be the signs that we are facing right now that we can question?
You're not going to like this. You're not going to like this, but what are the signs that you're in the wrong marriage? Now think about it.
I don't know. Because I'm not married.
One day you might have to ask yourself that question. But here's the thing, and hopefully you never do. But here's the thing. So let's say you're in a business and you're miserable. Is that a sign that you're in the wrong business? I could fight definitively and give you arguments to say that's 100% yes, you're in the wrong business. However, if it's a true debate and I can play both sides, I could definitively give you an argument that says it's absolutely the right business. So being miserable in a business, not making money in a business, being distracted in a business, all of those are just items. That's all they are. They're just things. Being happy in a business is just a thing. So for instance, let's say you're in a band and you have one song that goes crazy and the whole world knows it and then nobody ever hears from you again. In that instance, in that one song, you're like, I'm a musician, I'm the world's best musician, everybody loves me, I want to do it for the rest of my life. And nobody ever listens to you again. 6 months later, you're like, I hate being a musician, this is all crap, it's really terrible, and this happens with business too. You make the world's ball that bounces higher than everybody else. I love business, it's great business, and then you never make a ball that bounces again and nobody likes you anymore. So depending on when I talk to you, you're going to respond in kind. So really then, does your emotion about your business definitively say, and does your revenue definitively say that you should be in your business? No, I want to be clear on this. Absolutely not. Are they pieces of evidence that should be listened to? Yes. Context. Again, why are you in business? Why did Elon Musk sell PayPal? Why? Why did he go along these paths? Why did he build the Boring Company? Why is his pinnacle landing on Mars without dying? You have to go back. Why are you in business? Are you trying to make the world better for you and your family? Are you trying to make the world better for everybody? I believe Elon Musk is truly trying to make the world better for everybody. One, he made PayPal. Everybody can pay online. He made the world better for millions of people. He's making the Boring Company so more people, mass transit, can move around a city better. That's better for the whole. Two, he made Tesla, which is a better car when it comes to technology. Is it the best car? No. But he made lives better for lots of people. Mars, colonizing. You can't colonize alone. It's impossible. So again, if you're in the wrong business, then you have to go for, who do I want to be when I grow up, and does this business serve? If the answer is no, like I believe PayPal was for him, sell it. If the answer is yes, then how? So he would say, well, the Boring Company, yes, this is part of my mission. But if he put all of his time into it, he'd never make it to Mars. So it's a part of it, but how? Well, it's on the side of my desk. Thank you very much. I've got a lot of money. I'm going to hire people to do it, and I want reports. I don't want to be active. Tesla, I want reports. I don't want to be active. Mars, I want to be there. I want to be on the floor. So the answer then comes down to you. And again, this is rooted in your origin. What do you want from life? What were you conditioned for? What is in your blood? What is in your brain that you can't get rid of? What is in there that you want to become, that you are capable of becoming, that you have a talent for, that you can sell, that you would love to do every day? Once you start to answer those, and this is our approach, you got to understand that first, then you could say, how does this business serve? And if the answer is it doesn't, you might want to consider exiting, selling that business, and moving on. And there's nothing wrong with that. I met a guy the other day. He was driving out in this beautiful brand new Porsche Taycan, and I noticed he had a Porsche 911. So I asked him which one was better, which one he preferred. And it turns out he just exited a business for $50 million. You know why? Because he's got other stuff to do. He built a great business. He was happy, and he's like, you know what? Other people can do more than this with me, and I've reached my targets, so I'm going to let it go. There was a lot in there. Sorry, that was a big answer, but
no, it's okay. It's okay. So I caught some of it. I think I have to watch a replay of it to understand the whole thing clearly, more clearly. The thing is, and the last thing you said is really good. Really good was, once we reach our targets, we can decide if we want to leave or like give to any, or what we want to do with it. That the same thing.
So here's the question for you then. What's going to happen to Tesla when Elon Musk is living on Mars?
He might sell it.
Is he going to walk away?
Yeah, he might.
He'll sell it to Chrysler. I'm pretty sure when he is colonizing Mars, he's either going to bring Tesla with him to be the vehicles on Mars, which makes perfect sense, and then sell off the Earth arm of it. Who knows? Or he might become disinterested in it and do what he did with PayPal and say, I don't need that anymore, but I'm going to keep the Tesla rights to Mars. Who knows? The future is going to be very interesting. But yes, when something is done serving, then you have to say, okay, well, maybe I don't want to be in it anymore, but I want 20% every year for the rest of my life, or 5% or 3%. So then you sell a majority, whatever. That comes down to you. But you've got to make sure whatever your primary business is, that it's serving you. And if it isn't, now we've got a pretty good chunk of evidence that says I might not be in the right business. And that's why I'm unhappy. And trust me, if your business isn't serving you, you're probably going to be unhappy somehow. There'll be signs.
Okay, so once we have enough signs that we understand that we are in the wrong business, so what should we do now?
Well, what the Beatles did was they went and lived in India for a year.
So
what Steve Jobs did was he went to live in India for a year. You go find yourself. If you come to the conclusion that you don't know who you are, when you start another business in that same understanding, you're probably going to start the wrong business again. It's time to go and find out who you are. Now, that is something that we are putting courses together. That is what our book is about. That's what we are going to be selling to the planet eventually once we get all of our items done, our book and our courses. But here's the thing. If you come to the conclusion that you're a wee bit unsure of who you are, it's reasonable then to put some time into figuring that out. Now, Maslow hierarchy of needs, Maslow, he predicted in like 1960 or 70, I don't remember the year, he said 2% of the world's population is self-actualized. If we include in that knowing who we are, he said most people on the planet don't know who they are if we follow him and him alone. Now, there's more up-to-date data and there's stuff like that. I don't want to get into it because it's a much bigger conversation, but let's just pretend he's correct. If we pretend he's correct, am I arrogant enough to believe that I'm part of the 2%, or is it reasonable to say that there's a reasonable possibility that I might need to do some learning? It's reasonable. And even if you are in the 2%, wouldn't you want to verify it by going and trying something and learning you? That's the whole idea. And will you learn who you are by owning a business? Yes. So I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying do it under the understanding that it's a learning experience. Who am I? What do I want to bring to the world? I don't know. Well, I seem to be interested in making microphones. Okay, I'm going to make a microphone company and see what happens. You get halfway through and say, nope, that wasn't it. But you know what? I could probably sell it for 4 million. Done. Sell it. Or you can sell it for 100,000, whatever. Or you can't sell it and you leave with debt. Cut your losses and walk on. The idea is life is a journey. And in that journey, you're learning constantly. Who am I? What do I want? What am I good at? What can I sell? Now, you might say, well, I'm an employee. I don't sell anything. That's complete BS. Remember who hires you. Remember your boss. Remember who you serve. If you let them down, if you let down the person by not producing what they need you to make or produce or show for your time, they will cut you short. They will let you go. We all have to produce in one way or another.
Okay. True thing, like you have to like this I don't want to get into a selling conversation because it's gonna get very big. True. Because
very multifaceted.
True. So tell me a bit more about the courses or the books. Like, have you decided the name of the book yet?
I have a pre-edition of my book, Monster, Your $1 Billion Ideology. The reason that I wrote it was the way we approach business, the way we approach the psychology of business, understanding what businesses are, and the success that we've had with everything from very small companies with a couple of people all the way up to $1 billion companies and a lot in between. As we figured out a lot of stuff. Now, in that, we had a decision to make. Do we take what we have and sell it a handful of times a year to only the people that can afford it? That's the consulting model. That's the business model that we were in previously. But then we thought, wait a second, if we can systemize this so people can do it on their own when we're not in the room, then what is that? What does that look like? So we played around with that and we found, yeah, we can, the systems that we make are very deliberate. They're all structured. And my whole goal in making all of them was they should be able to be done without me in the room. So because we met that mark a long time ago, I was like, well, Can we make it so we're not even anywhere around? We just sell it as a course. So then the idea was, can we teach companies to systematically and deeply and accurately understand who and what they are with us not being in the room? And the answer was yes. So now we're in the middle of teaching through the book and teaching through our courses, so we don't even have to be there. So now, instead of selling it 5 or 10 times a year, I want to sell it 5 or 10 times a day. That's where we want to be. We want to help individuals all the way up to teams, all the way up to organizations. We just don't want to be in the room anymore. So now, instead of selling something for 6 figures, we can sell it for hundreds or possibly thousands. But we want to keep it accessible so individuals can take our course. And we're actually building a very specific component for individuals too, so they can figure out, who am I based on evidence? Where do I fit into the world? What is my best foot forward? How can I fit? How can I serve? So that is what our course is going to do. That is what our book is going to do. And they're both, everything is under construction today.
Okay. And because today means the week or like the time, that's the thing.
Yeah,
so
like right
by
now,
when, like that, so by when will it be
this year
available?
for sure. This year for sure. Like, we have the draft of our book, the second draft of our book, almost complete. There's going to be another draft and some more writing. So I'm hoping within 3 months or so we'll have the book done. But I've said that on podcasts before. It's a big book. It takes time. But definitely this year, the course and the book will be out in 2021. And it's just a question of how soon can we get it done. I honestly don't know. It's a lot of work. We got a lot of stuff to do. We got to film, edit, build the course material. But we have all of this stuff is done and it works. We just have to make it in a presentable fashion. So it will happen this year. We're just pushing really hard to get it done sooner rather than later. Unfortunately, that's the best answer I can give you. We're working on it. We do sell now, which is available today, we do sell consulting of the same processes. So if a team likes what I'm saying and they're like, hey, we got a team of 4 people, or we've got a company of 100 people, we can work with those today in a consulting fashion, using the systems and adding. And of course, when it's consulting, we add a lot more in than a course ever possibly could, because we're not there. So we do have consulting we can offer immediately to help companies take advantage, to understand who exactly they are and take advantage of it, like we've done with many of our clients. That's available today. But we want to transition everything over so we don't do any consulting eventually, and we're an education company, because then we can scale and we can have more impact.
Okay, so give me an example or of how did you help a company? So give me 1 or 2 examples.
So the company I want to talk about, they're a heating and ventilation and cooling company. And they're all over my website. We've done a lot with them. We named them, branded them, positioned them. When I met them, they were an $8 million company hoping to get to $10 million one day. And at the beginning, it was a smaller job. It was branding. We designed a company, named all that business, like I said. But I think a few years after that, they came back and said, we're growing now. We're at 14 million and, we're at 80 people. We want to know who we are. We want to isolate our core values because we didn't do it the way we do now back then. So we came in and did a consulting project with them where we helped them understand exactly who they are, exactly where they fit, and why they've been successful. So basically, we said, don't think of yourself as an HVAC company anymore. Focus on the drivers that got you to where you are. Why are you outpacing your competitors? What's different about you? Why are you moving so quickly? So we did that project with them. And I studied their staff. I worked with their staff. I interviewed, I think, 30 of the 100 people. And we spent a few months and we really dug around and helped them understand deeply who they are. And one of the criteria that they gave me was, we want to win the award for Best Employer Canada and Best Employer British Columbia. And so by us helping them understand exactly who they are, exactly where they fit, and we built this huge magazine book report for them. And we taught it to their whole company, all based on evidence. So everything we gave them was based on evidence. Nothing was conjecture. Nothing was made up. Everything was real. And we taught them all how to understand their future. They're at 60 million today. And guess what? They won both of those awards, which is it's very difficult to do for a young company. They were under 10 when they won both awards. And if you look through Living Blueprint and look for Somatic, the HVAC company, the whole story is there. Now, did I help them get to 60 million? I told them where to focus. I said, look, craft, business, and culture. If you look through their presentation, you'll see it's all there. Those three things are what set them apart from everybody else in the industry: how they do business, where they focus. And by me definitively proving to them that those three items, craft, business, and culture, are the accelerators that took them from 0 to 8 million to 14 million to 60 million, and telling them, focus on these, make these better, never let these go. By doing that, that was their heartbeat. That was from where they started. And that's something that they practice every day. And by them definitively and ultimately focusing on those three things and making them better and better and better and better, their company is growing exponentially. They did all the work. All I did was help them understand exactly what motivates and drives them. And I taught them how to protect it. And I taught them how to teach it to everyone who works there, to all of their staff, to all of their clients, and to everybody coming in. I taught them where to focus, but I did it all based on evidence through all of the processes that we're putting into the courses that we make.
Okay. That's a really great example. And so I think people understood what exactly, how exactly you can help. So where can they find you online?
Living Blueprint, we own livingblueprint.com. Anything around there, if you search, will come up. So livingblueprint.com, that's on Facebook, YouTube. We've got lots of videos on YouTube, lots of video testimonials from clients. It's very easy for me to tell you I'm amazing at stuff. So I typically try not to, and I let my clients do it for me. The book has its own website called billiondolarideology.com. There is a roundtable discussion in there where we actually show a lot of examples and we talk through a lot of business concepts. You just have to sign up and you'll watch it. We're not going to attack you with emails and stuff. We are building an email list, and you can subscribe or not subscribe. But in that roundtable, we talk through a lot of complicated topics and show lots of visuals on screen of exactly what happened, and have the clients tell you in their own voice, in their own words, what the results were.
Okay, so what is the book mainly about, like Billion Dollar Ideology?
It's the psychology under all of the tools. So for instance, that's a great question. So for instance, when somebody hires us or takes our course, do they care how it works? For instance, you buy a Tesla. Do you want to know what the AI is doing and thinking? Do you want to know what a catalytic converter does? Do you want to know how the brakes work? No, you just need them all to do their job. That is what you get when you take a course. That is what you get when you hire us as a consultant. But what we realized was the book is an opportunity to teach people the underlying psychological process of what's actually happening and why we get the results that we get, and what the psychological models are, and how you can work with them, and how you can use them to your own advantage. Because I want people to take this way of thinking and put their own spin on it and take it in their own direction, in their own business and in their own lives. That's what the book is for.
Okay, so what's the difference between like the Billion Dollar Ideology and your second book that you're currently working on?
Well, Billion Dollar Ideology is your own book. So this is just the version 1. There's only 2 of these in existence on the planet. One for me.
Sorry.
It's literally just a test book. It's been completely reimagined until the version that we're going to be releasing.
Oh, sorry. I thought like it was a 2 different books.
It's not released yet.
Okay.
So that's just literally a working copy.
Okay. So the last thing I want to ask you is like I actually miss our important question that I always ask. So what is learning and education to you? That's a signature question of mine.
Well, first of all, we all like to believe that we are lifelong learners, but I don't actually believe that a lot of people are. I think a lot of people get comfortable in what they've learned. So to be a lifelong learner, I think there has to be the constant question or push inside of your own head that I don't know what the F I'm doing. And the willingness to say, somebody knows something that I don't. And the willingness to take that, to digest it, and actually rewrite how your brain works. To me, education And where the world is going is the ability to rewrite the programs in your head and replace them with better ones. Now, you may have a better program than what the world currently has, and we believe we have that because we've tested it. But here's the thing. If I'm true, then what I want to do is go and rewrite the programs in your head. To me, that's what education is. Now, if you have a program running in your head that says A plus B equals 10, that's a bad program. Now, because you've been taught A plus B equals 10 for your whole life and your whole country, your whole community believes that, you might be stuck with that program. Now, here's the thing. If you write a program that says 1 plus 2 equals 3, and it is correct, anybody can test it, it's factually correct, but the world isn't thinking that way, now you become the educator. But the people who believe A plus B equals 10 will never take your course. So again, to me, education is the ability and the willingness to rewrite programs in your head and replace them with ones that are better.
Okay,
There's a great humility in that.
Okay.
You have to, if you want to learn something new and get a better program in your head, I do believe there's a part of you that has to question the programs running in your head first. Otherwise, why would you take the course? Now, you might get to a course and say, I want to learn how to paint. I don't know how to paint. That's a different thing. Again, now you're additive. You're saying, I didn't have anything in this box. I want something in this box. That's the other form, I guess, of education, where it's you've got an empty box, you want to fill it. And for that, I think there's far less ego attached. It's once you become an adequate painter, could you become a great painter if you let go all of the stuff that made you adequate? Now we're getting into some deep learning, and we're back to where I started of saying, well, if I take another course, could I stop being adequate? Which first means you have to come to terms with the fact that you're adequate.
Okay. So is adequate or an average same? So
sure, it can be. Yeah, sure. For the purpose of this, yes, sure.
Okay. Interesting. So we have to learn and unlearn what we know and then relearn.
I like the idea of replacing with something that's more effective or better or more insightful or whatever. So again, if you have a program, 1 plus 2 equals, 3.1, that's close to the mark. But if you could replace it with a program that 1 plus 2 equals 3 and it's factually correct, that's just making it incrementally better. Right now, of course, as you get into algorithmic stuff and psychology, obviously it gets significantly deeper and more complicated. But the basic form is, are you comfortable with adequate 1 plus 2 equals 3.1? Or do you want it to be perfect? 1 plus 2 equals 3, and that's it. And it's factually proven everywhere on the planet. You first have to agree that you're adequate and then say, I need to improve upon that. And if you're not willing to do that, don't take the course.
Okay. True. That was a really great insight. The overall concept was. So the last thing I want to ask you is, ask you to say is like, how was your experience being on the show today? You have to explain it in 5 to 20 words.
How was my experience being on your show, Malcolm? I gotta think about that. It was enjoyable. Okay. Lots of syllables, only a few words. It was, I like that you digest concepts, focus on something that challenged you, and then asked about it. And to me, that goes into the last thing we were talking about, is being willing to add on or challenge beliefs and structures that you have. And for that, I appreciate talking to you.
Okay. That was more than 20 words.
I know, but hey, there was lots of little filler words in there and lots of little ums and ands and stuff. So if you look at the meat of it, it's like 50.
Yeah, it's okay. It really doesn't matter. Yeah. So it was amazing to having you on the show, and I'm sure a lot of listeners have learned a lot from this.
I hope so. And I am accessible. I mean, we're going to become more and more accessible as our learning material gets out there. I'm relatively quiet online right now, simply because I don't want to make too much noise when we don't have a download buy button right now. I mean, if somebody wants consulting, we're here for you. But when it comes to the courses in the book, which I feel are the things that a lot of people are going to want, and once they're available, then we're going to be much louder online. We're going to push a lot more and probably start our own podcast. But until then, I need to spend every waking hour building all of the tools so we can get them out to the world.
Okay. So you're waiting for it, but so what's the way to connect with you directly? So we learned that through the website people can connect with you.
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm not terribly active on there, but we do have a presence. Whenever we do something, I do my best to push it out through Twitter. Facebook, I'm on Facebook. I don't use Instagram, although I think we have Living Blueprint at Instagram. It's just not one that I've had the time to develop, but I'm sure we will. But for right now, Facebook, LinkedIn, those are the two primary places that I tend to spend some time. So you can follow me on LinkedIn. You can, follow us on Facebook, and we're typically around.
Okay, amazing. So I'll give the links of your social media and also the Living Blueprint with the description of the podcast. And for the people who are watching this on YouTube or Facebook, you're going to see this on the captions. And thanks for coming on the show, and thanks for the audience who are listening or the watching.
And thank you. I really appreciate the time with you. It was very enjoyable.
Yeah. And bye to the listeners.
Yes, bye-bye.
This was the end of today's episode, and I know that it's quite hard to take the steps that you need to take, but I hope that we were able to share some steps that you can take right away to motivate yourself to take a leap of faith and pursue what you want to be or want to do. And if you have any question, then message me on Instagram at Abdullah M. Mahmood. It is spelled as ABDULLAHMMAHMUD. Again, the spelling is ABDULLAHMMAHMUD. This is my social media handle for all social medias: LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok as well. I don't have any videos on TikTok anyway, but you can find me there. You can follow me or send a message. I'll love to talk with you. And finally, you can also message me through Anchor, the voice message option of Anchor. And lastly, if you want to grow with me and learn actionable steps twice a week, or want to make this podcast be the #1 podcast for visionaries, then make sure to hit the subscribe button. And if you are on Apple Podcasts, then make sure to leave a review. It really helps to bring on amazing guests just like today. And yeah, that's for today. Until next time, keep being your best self. Bye.